In 1955, one man sold more merchandise than Mickey Mouse, Coca-Cola, and Elvis Presley combined. $300 million in coonskin caps, lunchboxes, and toy rifles in a single year. 5,000 raccoon skin caps sold every single day. Schools in Detroit shut their doors because children skipped class just to see him in person. His theme song put 3 different versions in the Billboard Top 10. At the same time, something no recording had ever done before or since. And the man behind all of it received almost nothing. Walt Disney kept the money. Walt Disney kept the rights. And Walt Disney personally blocked him from the 2 film roles that would have changed the entire of his career. One of those roles became an Academy Award nomination. The other became part of what many critics call the greatest Western ever made. He got neither, because Walt Disney said no. The man who made Disney a fortune spent the rest of his Hollywood years trapped inside a coonskin cap he could never take off. His name was Fess Parker, and this is his incredible true story, told in 10 unforgettable moments you never knew about. Number 1. Born on the frontier for real. Fess Alicia Parker Jr. was born on August 16, 1924, in Fort Worth, Texas. One day after the birthday of Davy Crockett himself, a coincidence that would haunt and define him for the rest of his life. His father, Fess Sr., worked as a tax assessor in Tom Green County. His mother was Mackie Allen Parker. When Fess was just 3 months old, the family moved to San Angelo, where they settled on a farm and tried to survive the worst economic disaster in American history. The Depression hit rural Texas without mercy. Young Fess milked cows before school, mended fences on weekends, and learned to hunt before he could read properly. But even as a kid on that dusty ranch, something was different about him. He grew at an extraordinary rate. By high school, he towered over every teacher and classmate in the building at 6 feet 6 inches tall. He played football, ran track, and graduated with the class of 1943 with one burning ambition. He wanted to fight in the war that was consuming the world. Number 2. Too tall to fight a war. In January 1944, Fess Parker walked into a Navy recruiting station determined to become a fighter pilot. There was one problem. He physically could not fit inside the cockpit. At 6'6", his legs were too long. The Navy rejected him on the spot. Parker immediately volunteered for the next best thing, rear gunner on a torpedo bomber. The Navy measured him again. His shoulders were too wide for the rear turret. 2 rejections in one day. Most men would have accepted a desk assignment. Parker refused. The Navy transferred him to the Marine Corps as a radio operator, and Seaman First Class Parker shipped out aboard the minesweeper YMS 344, clearing explosive mines from Philippine waters as the war wound down. He never saw the combat he volunteered for, but when he came home in 1946, he was no longer the farm boy from San Angelo. He was a veteran who had crossed an ocean, and he was ready to find out what the rest of his life held. Number 3. The knife that changed everything. Parker enrolled at Hardin-Simmons University in Abilene on the GI Bill in 1946. His plan was simple: play football, earn a degree, figure out the rest. At 6'6" and 200 pounds, he was a genuine college prospect. Scouts were already paying attention. Then one afternoon, it all shattered. Parker was involved in a minor fender bender near campus. The other driver was drunk. And instead of exchanging information, the man pulled a knife and attacked Parker in the middle of the road. The blade caught him in the neck and chin. Blood poured from the wound as Parker collapsed on the pavement, fighting to stay conscious. He survived, but the damage was done. His football career was over before it started. Parker later said with quiet understatement, quote, "There went my football career," end quote. He transferred to the University of Texas at Austin, switched to history, and earned his degree in 1950. But during those long months of recovery, with no more football to fall back on, he wandered into a campus theater production, and standing on a stage felt like the most natural thing in the world. A drunk driver's knife slammed one door shut and opened another that led straight to Hollywood. Number 4. The $32 Nobody. Parker headed to USC to chase a master's in theater. He had no money and no connections. His first professional role was a stage extra in Mr. Roberts at $32 a week. He was 27 years old and completely invisible. He had one stroke of luck. A visiting Hollywood actor named Adolphe Menjou had seen him at the University of Texas and personally introduced him to a Los Angeles talent agent. That connection cracked open doors that would have stayed locked for years. But the work was still brutal. Uncredited voice work in Harvey. Bit parts in Springfield Rifle, Island in the Sky, The Bounty Hunter Battle Cry. He was tall, handsome, and forgettable. Just another aspiring actor grinding through the machine, praying for a break that never came. For 3 years, nothing happened. And then his agent got him exactly 1 day of work on a low-budget movie about giant ants. Number 5. The giant ant movie that created Davy Crockett. The movie was called Them, a 1954 Warner Brothers B picture about irradiated ants terrorizing the Southwest. Parker had barely 2 minutes of screen time, playing a pilot in an insane asylum, raving that his plane was downed by enormous insects. It was a throwaway part. But Walt Disney was in the theater. He was scouting the film's star, James Arness, for a planned television miniseries about Davy Crockett. Disney watched Arness carefully, took notes. And then the tall unknown walked on screen, wild-eyed and completely committed to his absurd 2-minute scene. And Walt Disney sat up straight in his seat. The legend goes that Disney turned to an aide and said, "That is our Davy Crockett." Parker had beaten out Arness, Buddy Ebsen, Sterling Hayden, and George Montgomery for the most coveted role in television without even knowing he was being considered. Ebsen was cast as the sidekick Georgie Russell. The two became lifelong friends, trading dance lessons for guitar lessons, and stayed close until Ebsen's death in 2003. From $32 a week to the personal selection of the most powerful man in entertainment. Fess Parker's life was about to explode, and the explosion would leave scars he carried for the rest of his days. Number 6. The most explosive merchandising frenzy in television history. The first Davy Crockett episode aired December 15, 1954, on ABC's Disneyland. By the second episode on January 26, 1955, America was in full hysteria. The numbers are staggering. By year's end, consumers had purchased over $300 million in Davy Crockett merchandise. That is more than $2 billion today. 10 million coonskin caps sold in a single year. 5,000 a day at peak. 14 million Crockett books printed. Lunchboxes, toy rifles, comic books, bedspreads, and cereal bowls flooded every store in the nation. Raccoon tail prices rocketed from 25 cents a pound to $5 a pound almost overnight. The New York Times Magazine declared some knockoff caps a national fire hazard. The Ballad of Davy Crockett became the only song ever to place 3 versions in the Billboard Top 10 simultaneously. Bill Hayes hit number 1 for 5 straight weeks. Tennessee Ernie Ford peaked at number 5. Parker's own version reached number 6. The song dominated the hit parade for 16 weeks. Parker reportedly received $150 for his recording. Disney sent him on a tour of 42 cities and 13 countries. He shook 3,000 children's hands every day. When he visited Detroit, schools closed. On July 17, 1955, he led the Disneyland Opening Day Parade on horseback alongside Ronald Reagan. Parker later called the whole experience, quote, "a blend of intermittent terror interspersed with excitement and fatigue," end quote. He was the most famous man in America, and he was about to find out that Walt Disney had built the cage before he handed him the crown. Number 7. The Disney trap that destroyed his career. This is the part of the story that should make you angry. Walt Disney had signed Parker to a personal contract, not a studio deal with Walt Disney Productions. A personal agreement with Walt himself. And that contract gave one man absolute control over every professional move Fess Parker made. In 1956, the legendary director John Ford wanted Parker for a major role in The Searchers, the Western masterpiece starring John Wayne that is now considered one of the greatest American films ever made. The kind of role that transforms a career. Disney refused to loan him out. The part went to Jeffrey Hunter. Parker said Disney did not even tell him about the offer until filming had wrapped. Think about that. The opportunity of a lifetime came and went, and no one bothered to mention it. Then, Bus Stop. Parker was wanted for the lead opposite Marilyn Monroe. Disney said no again. The role went to Don Murray, who earned an Academy Award nomination. Two of the biggest opportunities in 1950s Hollywood gone in a matter of months, because one man decided the guy in the coonskin cap was too valuable to share. Years later, Parker laid bare what those losses cost him. He said, quote, "After 2 years without any significant breaks from the Davy Crockett image, I felt that Bus Stop or The Searchers would have given me the opportunity to be a part of John Ford's group. But since I did not make that break, it affected the rest of my film career. That was the fulcrum, which I had to either go up or go down. And I went down," end quote. Let those words sink in. He knew exactly what was taken from him. He carried that knowledge for 50 years. The final break came when Disney tried to force Parker into a 5-page supporting role in a minor western called Tonka. Parker refused. Disney suspended him. The two men parted ways. And Parker discovered the final indignity. He claimed his share of the $300 million merchandise bonanza was voided on a technicality because his contract was with Walt personally, not with Walt Disney Productions. The man who generated hundreds of millions for Disney walked away with almost nothing. Fess Parker had been the most bankable face in America. Now he was a typecast frontier actor with no film career, no leverage, and no money from the biggest merchandising frenzy in television history. Hollywood had a name for actors like that. They called them finished. Number 8. Daniel Boone and the comeback nobody expected. Fess Parker was not finished. He was furious. And fury, it turned out, made him smarter than anyone in Hollywood expected. He could not use the Davy Crockett character because Disney owned the rights. So he found another frontier legend, and this time he made absolutely certain that he owned a piece of everything. Parker formed his own production company, Vesper Enterprises, and structured a joint venture with Arcola Pictures and 20th Century Fox Television. Daniel Boone premiered on NBC on September 24, 1964. Parker was the star, the co-producer, a part owner, and eventually directed 5 episodes himself. Nobody was ever going to trap him in a one-sided contract again. The show was an instant hit. A 20.8 household rating in its first season, ranked number 25 nationally, with peak audiences over 30 million viewers. It ran 6 seasons and 165 episodes through 1970. Ed Ames played the Cherokee companion Mingo. A 5-year-old boy named Darby Hinton, who wandered into auditions wearing lederhosen meant the sound of music, was cast on the spot as Daniel's son Israel. The Kentucky legislature formally protested the show's historical inaccuracies. Parker cheerfully told them it was entertainment, not a history class. But even this triumph carried a bitter edge. Daniel Boone was a hit, but it was still a frontier show. Parker was still the tall guy in buckskins. The serious, dramatic roles, the John Ford films, the chance to prove he was more than a TV woodsman, those doors never reopened. He was making good money and drawing 30 million viewers a week. But he was still trapped inside the same archetype that Disney had locked him into a decade earlier. The coonskin cap had simply been replaced by a different hat, and then the money fight started all over again. Parker later sued Fox, alleging the studio had taken in roughly $38 million from the series, while shortchanging his share of the profits. The case dragged through the California courts for years. The published appellate opinion reveals that Parker and his partners accused Fox of fraudulently withholding nearly $8 million. The final settlement was never made public, but the lawsuit confirmed what Parker had learned the hard way with Disney. In Hollywood, the man on screen is always the last one to get paid. Number 9. Walking away and building an empire. When Daniel Boone ended in 1970, Parker was offered the lead in McCloud. He turned it down. The show ran 7 seasons with Dennis Weaver. Parker shot one more film, tried a sitcom pilot in 1974 that nobody picked up, and then did something unheard of. He quit Hollywood. Completely. At 49 years old. He told a reporter, quote, "I decided to do real estate and just take a walk," end quote. But the walk did not start smoothly. Parker first tried to build a Davy Crockett-themed amusement park called Frontier World at the Interstate 71 and 75 junction in northern Kentucky. The financing collapsed when Taft Broadcasting started constructing Kings Island just 2 hours away. He tried again in Santa Clara, California, only to sell the land to Marriott, which built Great America there in 1976. 2 swings, 2 misses. Most people would have gone back to acting. Parker doubled down on a different plan entirely. He fought the California Coastal Commission for nearly a decade to build a 360-room beachfront resort on Cabrillo Boulevard in Santa Barbara. The battle went all the way to the California Supreme Court before a compromise emerged. The Fess Parker Red Lion Inn opened in 1986, later became the Doubletree Resort, and today operates as the Hilton Santa Barbara Beachfront Resort, still jointly owned by the Parker family. In 1989, he founded the Fess Parker Winery and Vineyard on a 714-acre ranch on the Foxen Canyon Wine Trail. The winery grew into a nationally distributed brand. Wine critic Robert Parker called the vineyard an emerging Grand Cru site. Fess Parker wines were poured at Elizabeth Taylor's 8th wedding and the opening of the Reagan Presidential Library. He added the Wine Country Inn in Los Olivos in 1998. In 2007, at 83, he broke ground on a $90 million luxury resort. Ronald Reagan, who had ridden beside him in that 1955 Disneyland parade, became a lifelong friend and called Parker every year on his birthday. A White House aide once asked if Parker would accept the ambassadorship to Australia. He considered it and politely declined. He explored a 1986 Senate run against Democrat Alan Cranston, but his wife Marcella voted no. Quote, "My wife was not in favor," he said. "I am so happy with what evolved," end quote. The actor Hollywood discarded had become one of the most powerful hospitality figures on the California coast. But here is the thing that made his second act different from his first. This time, nobody could take it away from him. Every acre, every vine, every hotel room had his name on the deed. Not Walt Disney's name, not a studio's name, his. Number 10. The Last Frontier. Fess Parker died of natural causes at his Santa Ynez Valley home on March 18, 2010. He was 85 years old. It was the 84th birthday of his wife Marcella, whom he had married on January 18, 1960. 50 years of marriage ending on her day. A family spokeswoman said he had been speaking with his children minutes before he passed. 8 days later, the Santa Ynez Band of Chumash Indians completed their purchase of the Parker family's 1,390-acre Camp 4 ranch for approximately $40 million. The family had paid $6 million for the land in 1999. Parker's attorney confirmed that Fess himself had known about the deal and supported it, but was not involved in the final transaction. At his memorial, family and friends drank his Chardonnay and Syrah in the rotunda of the resort he built. His children Eli and Ashley read the poem Desiderata, which he had made them memorize as kids. A vintner compared him to Robert Mondavi, an Algerian taxi driver who had shaken his hand twice, told a reporter, quote, "He was very humble," end quote. Disney named him a legend in 1991. He received the Texas Medal of Arts in 2003. And in December 2004, Disneyland installed a tribute window in Frontierland reading Davy Crockett, Coonskin's Cap Supply Company, Fess Parker, proprietor. He is buried in Santa Barbara Cemetery under a simple headstone engraved with a coonskin cap. His son Eli runs the winemaking operation today. His daughter Ashley handles marketing. Son-in-law Tim Snyder serves as winery president. The Fess Parker label still pours award-winning vintages on the same Foxen Canyon Ranch, where their father planted his first vines more than 35 years ago. Marcella Parker survived her husband by 9 years before passing in 2019. They had been together for 50 years, and she spent the last 9 making sure everything he built kept running exactly the way he would have wanted it.